As a safety precaution, before you seriously inspect your siding, look out for insect nests. These can be underground, in your crawl space, under your house soffits and eaves, or in trees close to buildings. It's a good idea to have insect spray, a first aid kit or a sting kit, and antiseptic wash handy for these possibilities. Vines may be growing up the house and concealing termite shelter tubes, cracked sections, or could even be widening existing cracks. Let's start with the very popular and traditional siding, painted wood. Paint provides a weatherproof covering over wood grains and prevents moisture from destroying the wood. However, with time, this paint wears off. Peeling and blistering paint is common and should be repainted. But when there are large areas of paint missing and bare wood is exposed, this needs immediate attention. If the wood is cracked, swelling, delaminating, or deteriorating, then the problem is more serious. This is especially apparent in plywood siding and oriented strand board, also referred to as OSB. Another potential problem we want to look out for is mold or mildew on the sides of the house that the sun doesn't hit. If you purchased or are thinking of purchasing a house that may have lead paint, have a professional test it. The real problem with lead paint happens when it is inhaled or swallowed. If you've got children playing outside by the house, they could be inhaling or swallowing paint dust or small chips. A professional will most likely have the paint tested by a lab or perform an X-ray fluorescence test. Here are some different examples of painted siding. The picture on the top left shows blistered paint. The remaining three pictures shows what happens when painted wood siding is rotting. Cedar siding is known for its beauty and quality. The most popular types are pattern and beveled. Pattern types fit together with tongue and groove or shiplap joints, as shown in the picture to the right. Beveled cedar comes in many styles and is usually installed horizontally. Cedar siding has different grades, the poorest having large knots. Sometimes the constant expansion and contraction of the wood causes these knots to pop out. This can leave areas of your house vulnerable to water penetration. Also, the ends of cedar boards are prone to splitting. The thinner the board, the easier the split. When most contractors install cedar siding, the nicest boards will be displayed on the front and sides of the house, so be prepared to find more problems on the back of the house. If your house has thin, rectangular pieces of wood that are about 12 to 18 inches long and tapered at one end, these may be cedar shingles or shakes. With age, these start to cup and break apart as they dry. Take a look for missing pieces or loose sections that look like they're about to fall out. Also, try to lift a few shingles gently. They shouldn't move. If they do, they're not nailed in properly. Even though cedar can be painted or stained, a lot of people like its natural beauty and leave it alone. Over time, weathering causes the cedar to turn a silver color. Also, if there is no treatment applied, black mold can grow. If you have this problem, talk to your local hardware store about a sprayable chlorine solution that will kill the mold. If there's any discoloration on the corners of the house or the lowest shingles closest to the ground, this is probably due to water. This happens with water runoff from gutters or splashback from rain hitting the ground. The last common problem with cedar is rust streaks running down the siding. I'm sorry to say that the installer used the wrong type of nails. To avoid the potential of rust streaks, use a stainless steel nail. You may be living in an older home located in a rural area. If your house is covered with wide boards and narrower boards covering the joints, this is called board and batten siding. The narrow boards are called the battens. Almost any wood can be used. The two most popular are cedar and poplar, though poplar tends to split very easily. As with any wood siding, check for large splits that water can get behind or knot holes that allow the same thing. Plywood siding may cover your house. Chances are it was made by a company called Georgia Pacific and looks like regular plywood, although it is a specific type known as T111. All of the individual laminations are bonded together with waterproof glue. There are a variety of textures and patterns available, and generally come in thicknesses between 3/8 of an inch and 5/8 of an inch. It's often used because it's inexpensive and installs pretty easily. Problems arise when it's not properly installed. Exterior plywood needs to be painted or sealed every few years to keep water from being absorbed. If it's left to the elements, you will see delaminating, disintegration, or bowing. If the bowing is extremely bad, you may even see nails being pulled right out of the wood. This is most probable on the hardest weathered side. From top to bottom of the building, if two sheets of plywood are butting up against each other, there needs to be a metal Z flashing as shown in the picture on the bottom right. This is installed underneath the bottom edge of the upper sheet and bends over the top edge of the bottom sheet. This keeps water from flowing down the top sheet from entering the grain of the bottom sheet. And the last major problem we want to observe is the bottom edge that is hit by dirt and water. These two elements will quickly destroy the wood. Make sure you inspect all sides of your house. Let's now move on to hardboard composite siding. This can often be identified as a long horizontal board with beading running along the bottom edge. It is made from wood fiber, fillers, binders, and glue, and was developed as a low-cost alternative to solid wood siding. However, this has become one of the two most controversial siding materials, the other being stucco. There have been many class action lawsuits filed, and composite siding has, for the most part, been taken off the market. The materials used to manufacture composite siding require painting for protection. However, even with paint, the edges crack and split. When water gets behind the paint, the materials absorb this water like a sponge and the whole board puffs out. The paint also peels and blisters quickly. When water can penetrate through these areas, the wood behind the siding could rot and there would be no indication. The area most prone to rot is the beading along the bottom edge, especially as you get closer to the ground. Observe where the siding butts together, where it comes in contact with brick or block, or where it terminates at a corner. These areas should be sealed with caulk to prevent water penetration. It's a good idea to caulk around plumbing pipes or electrical devices that protrude from the house. Also, check around everything that has been nailed or screwed into the siding. If your house was built somewhere between the 1940s and the 1970s, you may have asbestos cement siding. This is thin, wide sheets with wavy bottoms that sound like a hollow pie plate when you tap on them. The only health risks associated with asbestos occur when it's airborne. When it's in solid form outside, it should pose no threat. During its heyday, it seemed to last forever and was basically maintenance-free. However, this is thin and very brittle siding, and it's not unusual to see a few broken or missing tiles. If your house is covered with this siding, be cautious of children playing near or against the house. Asbestos could be in the dirt or rub off on their clothes. A newer alternative to asbestos cement is called fiber cement. It's manufactured by James Hardie Building Products and substitutes wood fibers for asbestos. They blend these fibers with Portland cement, ground sand, and clay. According to the manufacturers, this siding is resistant to weather, wood-boring insects, and immune to ultraviolet rays from the sun. This siding is great because it has a Class 1 fire rating, meaning it doesn't burn and virtually no smoke is produced. Fiber cement can simulate almost any type of wood, vinyl, brick, or even stucco, so make sure to tap on it with a screwdriver. If it sounds like an empty pie plate, you'll know what you're dealing with. With this particular siding, look out for any major cracks. Now we're at the most popular siding of all, vinyl. Homeowners love this because there's no need to paint or stain it every few years. It requires only a few specialty tools and is very hard to beat for its low cost. Lots of people use it to cover rotted or insect-destroyed siding, but it doesn't really solve the underlying problem. The problems occur when vinyl siding isn't installed properly. Some people don't realize that changes in temperature cause vinyl to expand and contract. Vinyl should be cut long, overlapped about an inch, and allowed to slide. If it's cut too short, water will penetrate the gap and the two pieces that expand will get caught on each other, leading to buckling, bowing, or breaking. A common misconception is that vinyl siding is watertight. Unfortunately, you've been misled. The amazing thing about water is it can fit into even the tiniest of cracks with the help of the wind. If you ever notice icicles coming out under siding joints, water is between the vinyl siding and the wood behind. Another problem is that UV rays from the sun eventually make vinyl very brittle and cause long horizontal cracks in the siding. If a baseball or rock hits the house, this can puncture a hole in the siding, as shown in the picture on the bottom right. If one side of the house never gets any sun, mold and mildew can take over, causing discoloration and spread to the wood behind the siding. If you have this problem, simply wash it off with a hose and a recommended solution. Aluminum siding isn't used much these days. Its biggest flaws are the ability to easily dent and the outer coating that tends to dissolve into a fine powder. Look for siding low to the ground that may be loose or ripped off and can scratch someone with an unsuspecting eye, as shown in the picture on the right. If you have block or brick exterior walls, probe the mortar joints to check for disintegration. Look for broken blocks at the corners and Z-cracks that indicate footer problems. If you are curious about the difference between a brick wall and a brick veneer wall, a veneer wall is set about 1 inch to the outside of a stud wall because updated building codes now require insulation in exterior walls. An example of a veneer wall is in the picture on the bottom right. These walls are actually attached to the wood backing by corrosion-resistant metal ties. You may be asking yourself how in the world you will know which one you have. Well, the best and easiest method is to look right above the doors and windows. If you have solid brick exterior walls, there will be different brick patterns above the doors and windows, as shown in the picture in the top. A veneer wall will have the same continuous pattern as the rest of the wall, as shown in the picture in the bottom left. When inspecting veneer, follow the same methods as with brick or stone. Look for Z-cracks, probe mortar for disintegration, and look for crumbling or loose bricks at corners, which usually result from repeated freezing and thawing. Small cracks are natural, but if your eye can connect them, there may be a problem with the footer. A common problem with brick walls is called efflorescence. This is actually deposits of soluble salts that are brought to the surface by water in the wall. Scrubbing the wall with a muriatic acid and covering the bricks with a silicone sealant can eliminate efflorescence. Using a silicone sealant can control moisture in bricks. You've probably heard of synthetic stucco referred to as EIFS, or exterior insulation and finished systems. This consists of a layer of styrofoam nailed or glued to a wood backboard, usually plywood or oriented strand board, followed by a layer of fiberglass mesh, a base coat, then a finish coat. On a masonry wall, stucco usually has 2 coats applied that are each 5/8 of an inch thick. On wood-studded walls, there's usually 3 coats applied that are each about 7/8 of an inch thick. Only a professional can really tell you what you have. We'll talk about the basics and signs indicating it's time to call that professional. There are 2 types of EIFS, barrier and water managed. Most problems occur with barrier types because water can get near windows and doors. This trapped water then begins to rot. A water managed system is exactly that. It provides a way for any water inside to get back outside. A common site of water intrusion is where a lower roof meets a stuccoed wall. This might be a garage, for instance. A good flashing should be installed to prevent rotting out of the roof or walls. If your stucco siding is within a few inches of the ground, be prepared for the possibility of insect damage from termites or ants. These critters can travel through moist styrofoam very easily and make their way to your wood supports. To sum up stucco, look for cracks, peeling, discolorations, and rot. If you find any of these, call a certified professional who can bring a moisture meter to verify your hypothesis.